Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about Donald Trump tax plan. Normally I don't get involved with the political side of the internet, nor is this a political channel. However, with a lot of topics that have come up recently, it would be irresponsible to not talk about this and how it would affect us if he does get elected. So with that said, we are talking about some of the tax plans that Donald Trump has stated that may or may not affect us, what he is saying versus how it actually is, and everything in between. But before we do that, let's go over a quick disclaimer. The content of this video does not contain, is never intended to be, legal, business, financial, tax, or health advice of any kind. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is advised that you conduct your own research and consult qualified professionals before applying anything you find online. I also want to be 100% clear. This is not a political channel. I am not claiming to be for or against this candidate. I am simply relaying the facts and adding my perspective on how it would affect us gig workers and people who are looking to be in business for themselves. Also, thank you to GigTax for verifying this information and making this video possible. No taxes on tips. So the first event that caught my eye on this subject is the no taxes on tips proposal, where he went into a little bit more detail on. The idea is to exempt tip income from income taxation for occupations where tips are currently customary. Meaning if you tip a server, delivery driver, or something to that effect, that would be tax exempt. This also protects against people who just choose to add a gratuity screen to anything that really shouldn't have a gratuity screen. Great example of this. If your landlord starts forcing a gratuity or sometimes even expecting a tip to get around rental laws and sometimes even include that in their pricing, that wouldn't have the same effect as it would for servers and gig workers. That policy would just be an overall win for gig workers. It does seem to contradict some of the other policies that he has stated, but we're going to go over that later. Corporate income tax. One of the more controversial policies that he is working on is reducing the corporate income tax from 21% to 20% and even lower to 15% for companies that make their products in the US, which seems like it's not just a move that intends to reduce costs on consumers, but also brings jobs back to the US as opposed to outsourcing it to other countries. Now, I was thinking this out, and I don't know if this is going to have the intended result or if the intentions are that pure to begin with. One of the things that we saw in the past 4 years is just a highlight reel of corporate greed. If they can jack up their prices as they will, if they can replace you with the machine, they will. If all they need to do is hire someone to maintain the machines that they claim to be theirs, that is all they will get. This is also concerning for the other problem that comes with one of these other policies, but that is for another video entirely. Child tax credit. This is more about JD Vance, but he is discussing increasing the child tax credit to $5,000 from its current $2,000, which would be a 150% increase in value. Some politicians claim it would run them a tremendous amount of money, being $2 to $3 trillion, but this also seems like it's more of an idea rather than a plan. No details were discussed, and it would really need to be hashed out before it becomes anything relevant. Tax Cuts and Job Act permanent. In 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was put into law, which was the largest tax code overhaul in 3 decades. This overhaul introduced a crazy number of changes to the tax code, including income taxes being reduced across the board, raising the standard deduction, suspending personal exemption, removing the health coverage mandate, raising the child tax credit, providing student loans for K-12 private school tuition, repealing the ability to recharacterize retirement savings contributions, raising the exemption amount and exemption phase out threshold for the alternative minimum tax, curbing tax avoidance among high earners, altering the mortgage interest deduction for married couples, repealing the PEAS limitation on itemized deductions, and suspending miscellaneous itemized deduction. Now, regardless of how you feel about this code update, quite a number of these factors have reduced our individual costs and made it easier to keep money in our pockets as gig workers. Removing the healthcare mandate, income tax brackets being lowered, curbing tax avoidance from high earners. Some people don't like how standard deductions affected our gig economy and removed the W-2 employees from deduction opportunities, but for those who are willing to put in the work and be in business for themselves, you'll be able to access more benefits to the tax code, which in my opinion, this is how it should be, especially as we move into a gig economy centric system as predicted for 2034. Taxing large private university endowments. Now, Trump wants to revolutionize higher education, pledging to do so by creating a federally funded online university that awards free degrees, which is an interesting move in this job market. The American Academy would grant credit to prospective students for past coursework and use their credentials to apply for jobs with the U.S. government and federal contractors. And for those who are looking for W-2 income, this would be a solid move if you're looking for higher education. However, most jobs these days, college just isn't necessary. Sure, you need a college degree to become a lawyer or a doctor or engineer, is something that 100% requires it. And I would say 100% go for that if that is what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a marketing job or a desk job, it's not really that important. Not to mention, if you decide to go to trade school and learn a trade, would that be part of this deal or something else entirely? Especially since we are in a shortage of people in the trades, that might end up being better across the board. Would this academy support apprenticeships? Would this academy offer funding in that way? I have yet to see answers to those points. Replacing personal income taxes with increased tariffs. Donald Trump brought up the idea of imposing an all-tariff policy that would ultimately enable the U.S. get rid of income tax. Quick rundown, a tariff is a tax levied on imported and exported goods between countries, and that would keep more money in the pockets of the people, but also promote manufacturing in America as opposed to overseas. Now, some believe that this would increase the cost of goods too much, and it would end up on the lower middle class to pick up the bill. That said, if there is more money in the pockets of the people by removing income tax, how much of a difference would that actually be? Well, if states are removing income tax in their states but making it work, I am sure that there is a way. No tax on overtime. Now this one's a bit confusing. That would be removing taxes on overtime pay. This would be a huge move for those working overtime in jobs like construction and most blue-collar trades where you end up having a lot of overtime anyway. And if someone has ever put in a job where you're working a lot of overtime, you end up getting taxed on it just the same rate, though your tax return can end up putting you into a different tax bracket overall, which may increase your overall tax liability. No tax on overtime can lead to more money for the workers in a way, although there are a few things I want to mention about this specifically. First off, this may lead to more money in the pockets of those who want to work more, but for the opportunistic manager who wants to limit labor costs and not hire more people, he's likely to push those labor law limits. So there may need to be a remedy to that issue before applying this. Second, if this proposal came after the no federal income tax proposal, why bring this up if there isn't going to be federal taxes anyway? Are they sure that they can even pull it off? Have they not worked out the details yet? Too many unanswered questions on this subject, in my opinion. Exempt Social Security benefits from taxation. Next thing pitched is removing taxes from Social Security benefits, which would be a great way to keep folks who have moved into retirement to keep more money in their pocket, especially since they're on a fixed income. This seems to be more of a voter harvesting play since seniors make up a large share of voters, which makes sense from a political standpoint, but then goes back to the question, if there is no federal income tax, why put out these statements? Is this for clarification? Are we covering as much ground as we can in pursuit to reduce taxes? Like, I have so many questions on the strategy he's choosing for this approach. Or is that the point? Like, he's just talking to his audience and that's just the overall big play. Universal baseline tariff. That is where most of the income tax replacement would come from, and that is enforcing a universal baseline tariff. This would raise tariffs universally on all U.S. imports from 10% to 20%. This seems to be a way to raise about $2.5 trillion over the fiscal year 2026 to 2035, reduce debt, and promote bringing jobs back to the U.S. even further. That said, said, there's a lot of scrutiny towards raising concerns on how much taxes would be increased because of how much we buy from other countries. In the eyes of a lot of economists, this would not be a great play. 60% tariff on Chinese imports. On the more unwelcome side to the economic spectrum, Donald Trump recently proposed implementing a tariff of 60% higher on imports from China. Although it is estimated that it would generate 2.4 trillion of net new revenue on a static basis, it would ultimately produce far less revenue or even lose revenue once changes of trade behavior are taken into account. Specifically, under conventional scoring, we estimate it would produce no more than 300 billion over a decade and could lose 50 billion. On a macro dynamic basis, it would lose revenue under both scenarios. The truth about campaigns like this. Here's the reality. While campaigns like this sound very good to some people, it is very possible that most of these claims are just lip service. Donald Trump has made some claims that contradict each other, and while some can claim that he would make executive orders upon entering office just like his first term, that isn't guaranteed. That said, it's also possible that, similar to how Kamala hasn't worked out, Trump might be in the same boat. I find it interesting that this year we have experienced both candidates in office and can compare actions rather than empty words in campaign speeches. Now, a lot of people are claiming that their life was better in 2019 while he was in office, and they can't risk re-electing Kamala Harris due to the proven results of the last 4 years. That said, not every action Trump took was great either, and some results can be due to the actions that were deemed necessary to combat COVID and restore the economy after. So which is really the best way to go about voting this year? That's really your call and not mine. The truth about videos like this. I made this video with the full understanding that I have no influence to change anyone's minds for any reason. And it is very possible that everything can change, or nothing can change, or somewhere in between. This isn't meant to sway anybody's opinion as a voter. This is not a political channel. This is just meant to help lay out the facts as effectively as possible. That said, it is vital that when these changes come into effect, or even if they never do, that whenever you're dealing with the complexities of the tax code, you are going to consult with a qualified tax professional to make sure that you're doing it right. This is where GigTax is here to help. As somebody who has ventured into self-employment via food delivery apps, the income is promising. That said, you are also faced with challenges in navigating taxes as a self-employed person and transforming your gig into a sustainable business. GigTax was founded by Joseph Mayo, a seasoned gig worker with over 7,000 deliveries across 7 platforms since 2020, and they understand the challenges of freelancers, rideshare drivers, couriers, online sellers, and gig workers of all kinds. Their #1 online tax preparation service is designed to help maximize your tax savings and save you time, energy, and money. Enjoy exclusive discounts on tax prep services, as well as a range of additional benefits such as electronic filing, strategic sessions, all year round, direct access to tax pros and financial partners, client apps and portals, tax planning services, quarterly tax reviews, all absolutely free and incredibly valued benefits while filing with GigTax. Book your free strategy session today at gigtaxservice.com/drivenwyld and enter the code WYLD in all lowercase to access your special offer. Let GigTax simplify, educate, and support you on your tax journey, whether you are a gig worker making some extra money or becoming a successful entrepreneur leading an incredible lifestyle. Visit GigTax using the link in the description below and get started with saving the money you already made, as well as making even more along the way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.